Hi, I'm Caden here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have, well, first of all, the first big news dump of the season.
So starting to get back up on that incline now.
Exactly. We're starting to get some news. We're starting to get real close. I mean, we can literally see a game in the future that we'll talk about towards the end of the episode. But also what we're going to talk about is some of our favorite performers from both the Vikings and the Packers training camp thus far. So before we jump into that, to start us with the news dump and a quick disclaimer, I think I'm losing my voice. You can probably already kind of hear it. So if my voice gives out halfway through this news dump, don't make fun of me too bad. I wish it wasn't, but here we are. We got to fight through it, fight adversity. So speaking of fighting adversity, starting off with this news dump with a couple of injuries, new Miami Dolphin cornerback Jalen Ramsey torn his meniscus and will be out all the way until December of the 2023 NFL season. Joe Burrow went down with a non-contact calf strain in the Bengals practice, but they're thinking he should be back by the season, but he will miss the entirety of the preseason. And then in just the worst news you can possibly imagine, super sad here, Tim Patrick, the Broncos wide receiver who just missed the entirety of last season, is now also going to miss the entirety of this season with a torn Achilles. And also his wide receiver running mate with the Broncos, KJ Hamler, is also out indefinitely with a medical injury, or with a medical issue rather, something to do with his heart. Speaking of heartbreaking stuff there for Tim Patrick.
Yeah, that's really too bad for Tim Patrick, and now we'll miss back-to-back seasons. And for the Dolphins, that'll be more like a mid-season acquisition now for them when they get Jalen Ramsey back halfway through the season. So that could be quite a pickup for them late in the season when Ramsey comes back fully healed.
Yep, it's going to be getting really into that playoff crunch time, and it'll be a great boost for them. Now a couple of retirements, starting off with former Patriot and current Rams running back Sony Michel retires after only 5 seasons in the NFL, and former Bengals first-round pick John Ross retires after only 4 seasons in the NFL. Sony Michel had a really good career, good for him to kind of get out of there while he's still relatively young and not so injured. John Ross, what a weird career that was for him. He ran the fastest 40 time ever. I think he still owns the record for the fastest 40 time, and he just could not translate it to performance in the NFL.
No, he should have just been a kick returner. I think he would have been fine in a kick or a punt returner, but he could never figure out those routes and never really could get open in the NFL. So even with that blazing speed, and for Sony Michel, hey, he got a Super Bowl ring out of it. So good career for him, and I'm sure these guys will still be set for life with their rookie contracts.
I think 2 of them. I think he got one with the Patriots and the Rams, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
He picked up 2 of them. John Ross is just hilarious because the few times he did get one-on-one opportunities with no deep safeties, he did well. I think he usually caught a bomb when that happened because he was just that fast. But all you had to do was put one safety over top and it was over for him. Now to fly through some extensions of some big name players, starting off with the Dallas Cowboys and Trevon Diggs signing a 5-year, $97 million extension. I personally think that's overpaying for him, but corner is one of the hardest positions in the league, and if he can recreate the year that he had last year, putting up double-digit interceptions, that becomes very worth it all of a sudden.
Yeah, he's still kind of living off that double-digit interception season, or especially when he had 7 in a row?
Yeah,
or something like that. He had 7 games in a row with the pick. So, those are amazing numbers, and he gets beat often. But let me tell you, he's a big playmaker on that defensive side as well, too.
Yep, and to introduce a new highest paid quarterback in the league, which is like the 3rd time we said this offseason, Justin Herbert signs a 5-year, $262.5 million extension with the Los Angeles Chargers, making him the new highest paid quarterback. And in my opinion, the opposite. That's a lot of money. I think Herbert might be worth it. He is a hell of a player, and now that they've really committed to surrounding him with some weapons and getting a defense that doesn't allow 30 points a game, Chargers might actually have a chance this year.
Yeah, if they can get that defense figured out and not let teams come back on them like they did the Jaguars, the Chargers could really be a dangerous team in the NFL this season. And Herbert coming into now his fourth season, I believe.
Somewhere in there.
Third or fourth season.
2020 guy, so he'd be third. Yeah.
Yep. So he's really coming into his prime now. So it's his time to shine, really, and really he's got to unseat Patrick Mahomes in AFC West first before he can go any farther.
Yeah, that's really the challenge right there at the end of the day. Moving on, the Houston Texans re-sign offensive tackle Titus Howard to a 3-year, $56 million deal. Good to see the big guys get paid.
Yep, and it's a nice pickup for the Texans to solidify that offensive line for that young team that they're building down there in Houston.
Yep, and then the Chicago Bears re-signed tight end Cole Kmet on a 4-year, $50 million deal, really locking in the commitment to Justin Fields and keeping that offense stellar around him.
Yeah, that's another young weapon for Fields, where they got a lot of young weapons around him, and we'll have to see if that all come together this season in the NFL.
And then the New York Giants, make two big re-signs right here with offensive guard Andrew Thomas and running back Saquon Barkley at 5 years, $117.5 million and a 1-year, $11 million deal, respectively. That's, like I said, for Titus Howard. Good to see the big guys get paid for Andrew Thomas. But very interesting on the Saquon Barkley part. To give him only a 1-year, $11 million deal. He's been kind of spearheading and being the leader of this whole running backs aren't getting paid enough movement. So it's interesting to see that they paid him but didn't really give him a commitment. It's almost like patronizing him, in my opinion.
Yeah, a little bit. They gave him the 11 million, which is only 1 million more than what would have been the franchise tag. I want to say a salary cap tag, but I mean, that wasn't it. But for the franchise tag, it would have been $10.5 million, and he only gets just a little bit than $1 million more than he would have on that franchise tag, which is very interesting because, like you said, he was kind of leading the way with that. Let running backs get paid. And as soon as he was the first one to get offered to get paid, he took the deal. So only a 1-year deal. He'll have to prove it again this season, but I think that he'll be another superstar in the NFL this year.
Yeah, I think he's really banking on the prove it part of it, because if he can go out and put up a crazy season, 15,000 or 1,500 plus yards, double-digit touchdowns, and they're going to have to pay him so much money next year.
He's
it's
going to make
going
a lot
to be
more
crazy
next year.
And then finally, a re-signing that I very much enjoyed. The Minnesota Vikings re-signed Danielle Hunter to a 1-year deal with $17 million guaranteed and $3 million in sack incentives, which is something I really like, because damn well with Brian Flores at the helm at defensive coordinator, they are going to be sending him after the quarterback every play. So to give him that incentive and make him want it even more to get those high number of sacks is going to be really nice. And I think he's proven that when he missed most of that season with a torn pec and neck injury 2 years ago, that was kind of a one-off, and he can survive for a whole season. So I'm okay with giving him that guaranteed money. He's going to ball.
Yeah, it was big for him to prove that he could persevere through a whole season and not let the injuries take over and let him miss any games, which I don't think he missed any last season.
Nope.
I think he played all 17 plus the playoff games.
I think he might have had like a one-off game, but it was just kind of a random
he played
thing.
most of the season.
It wasn't a real big injury by any
at the
means.
very least. So I mean, that was a big to prove to them that he could make it through a whole season. And now he'll get to prove it again that he can be that pure pass rusher and one of the top pass rushers in the NFL this year.
Yeah, in the defense we ran last year with that shell coverage, you didn't really get to utilize Danielle Hunter the way they should have. They kept dropping him back in coverage randomly, kind of like they did with Za'Darius Smith, where they weren't utilizing the real raw part of his game, which is his raw pass rushing ability. And then a couple of new faces in new places. Former Chiefs wide receiver Byron Pringle signs with the Washington Commanders. The Dolphins sign cornerback Eli Apple to replace the freshly injured Jalen Ramsey. And former Seahawk linebacker Quan Alexander signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So all good pickups for teams right there, and definitely filling a couple of needs that got taken out, whether by injuries or off-season leaving.
Yeah, that's a nice pickup, I think, for Pittsburgh, who gets a nice middle linebacker to be a veteran leader for them. And, you really need that in that defensive backfield. And I think that Eli Apple won't be there very long once Jalen Ramsey comes back. He's just kind of a placeholder.
He's most definitely just a fill-in for Ramsey. But he'll get a chance to prove himself all the way until about December. So We'll see how he does. Okay, now to move on, we're going to talk about our star player from each of our favorite teams' training camps. Callan, take it away.
And with my star player, which I'm sure this is not going to be surprising, but I've been looking and watching Jordan Love, who has played very well this training camp. He had put together his best day just last week. He went 16 for 22 with 2 touchdowns, including a 2-minute drill that led them down to the 1-yard line. So that was very good to see him put together a full practice and a full game situation that allowed them to, kick the field goal. They didn't say how it finished, but I don't know. So I'm guessing they kicked the field goal at the 1-yard line.
They didn't say for a reason he shanked it.
Yeah, they didn't say if he missed it or not, but I'm hoping that he made that short of a kick, which I will be surprised if it comes down to the 1-yard line and Jordan Love does not go for it on 4th down instead of kicking that field goal in a true game situation. But nonetheless, all good to get the work in for the kicker. But I really like the way that he's performed, and he's performed a very good connection with Samori Toure, our 7th round draft pick out of Nebraska last year. And he's came in at 10 pounds heavier than he was last offseason. He put on a lot of muscle in this offseason to really help build his game. And he's really had a strong connection in this training camp with Jordan Love. Obviously, being backups all of last year, they had a lot of connections, or a lot of time to build chemistry and connection with all that time being the backups, while Aaron Rodgers was still playing. And another guy I really like is Luke Musgrave, who is showing that he can become an inline blocker and has really been performing very well in those blocking drills and running the blocking plays, which is very surprising because he didn't work very much of that blocking in college at Oregon State, but he's showing that he can handle it with no problem.
No, that's what makes it really hard for a tight end to transition to the NFL is because in college ball, and especially at Oregon State where Luke Musgrave was, they're really passing people. They don't really have to block too much unless you're playing Big Ten football maybe, where it's all running. But it's awesome to see that he can transition well and take on that really hard part of the game and take it with ease and learn. That's awesome to see. And then it's so crazy what one NFL offseason can do for a player. You see total glow-ups in that second year. Same thing happened with KJ Osborne from the 2021 to 2022 season when he got his first true offseason workout due to COVID. That was really cool to see, and that's cool to see for him too. For my Viking stars, I got a couple of defensive guys, starting with first-round pick last year, Lewis Cine, who sadly ended his season last year about halfway through with an injury, but he has been ahead of schedule and he has not only been performing through that injury, but absolutely dominating through that injury. He's been getting some first team reps. He's really going to push Cam Bynum for that starting free safety spot, which is so cool to see for him. And he had a awesome sprint across field interception in the flat the other day where he dove in front of the tight end. Man, it was so cool to see, and you love to see a guy who came off of a season-ending injury make plays like that so early into camp. And another guy I wanted to point out was this year's rookie, Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson. He was always much more of a physical, man-to-man, sticky, in-your-face corner at Clemson, and with Brian Flores' defense, he's really been able to do that. And I even heard a report that he actually jammed Justin Jefferson at the line of scrimmage and locked him down one play, which of course is only one play, but when you're talking about a rookie going against the best wide receiver in the NFL, it's pretty cool to even hear him do that well on just that one play, so you love to hear that. And then kind of my offensive MVP has actually been Kirk Cousins. He has been playing so well so far in this training camp. There is countless videos of him throwing into double or triple coverage, but throwing absolute dots, which I love to see because that's something that Kirk Cousins has never really, I don't want to say been able to do, but has never really tried to do. He's never really
been that gunslinger.
Never been that gunslinger, never really had the balls or the freedom to try to put it and be aggressive with his passing game. So I love to see that he's opening up and Kevin O'Connell's letting him do that more, because that just shows confidence growing in not only himself, but in the offense and in those young wide receivers. So hopefully that can continue.
Yeah, and I think that they're really good system guys for that defensive system in Minnesota, especially Andrew Booth Jr., who has played that man-to-man coverage ever since college. I think that he's going to have a spectacular season this year and really show up as one of the top corners in the NFC North this year.
I like it. Yeah, and Lewis Cine fits it really well, like you mentioned as well, because he can definitely is one of those guys who's smaller but is not afraid to get involved in the run game and can go and play down in the box. So that was this week's episode. By the time you're seeing this, it'll probably be Wednesday, and the Hall of Fame game, the first official preseason game, will be tomorrow if you're watching this on Wednesday, which would be whatever date that is.
August 3rd.
August 3rd, exactly, at, I believe, 7 o'clock Central Time.
On NBC.
Yep, and so we are going to see the first game, and it is going to be the New York Jets versus the Cleveland Browns, which is kind of crappy matchup, to be honest, because all you see in the Hall of Fame games is rookies, really. You don't see any really big names, and neither of these teams had any super big name rookies. Some of the names to look out for is first-round pick Will McDonald out of Iowa State. He was the 15th overall pick for the New York Jets. And then as for the Cleveland Browns, their main guy is going to be wide receiver Cedric Tillman, who they picked up in the 3rd round out of Tennessee. One pick after Tennessee wide receiver Jalen Hyatt. So it'll be interesting to see if one or both of those wide receivers out of Tennessee will do well. And this will be Cedric Tillman's first chance to show off.
Yeah, it seems like Tennessee always is able to kick out one good wide receiver every year. So we'll see which one it is this year that they're able to kick out. But it'll be interesting to see how these rookies perform in the first NFL game. You know, I mean, there won't be any Aaron Rodgers, there won't be any Deshaun Watson, more than likely. I will say they're not ruled out yet, but it would be shocking if either one of those guys played. Yeah. But it'll be interesting still to see the rookies play, and hey, it's still football. We're getting closer to that real football, but it's another taste towards that regular season game.
It's practically a USFL game, but it's football. So there we go. Happy my voice actually made it through this episode. Next week, we'll of course talk about the Hall of Fame game, and we'll think of some other good topics to scrounge up. But until then, don't forget
to eat the W.